Hi, everyone. My name is Liat Berry. I'm very excited to be speaking with you today on behalf of the Product School. And thanks for attending this session. Today, I'm going to talk about my career as a product manager. And I'm going to walk you through the journey that I've gone from kind of working as an engineer and transitioning into becoming a product manager. It is a question that I get often from several engineers who are aspiring to be product manager. I'm going to talk about my transition a little bit. And then I wanted to share some of the examples of work that I've done as a product manager. And I chose to speak about a project that I've actually worked on in the past, because I think it's a good demonstration on some of the product principles and a product manager work. And for this presentation, I chose to speak on Alexa. Full disclosure, I used to work for Amazon as a product manager. I currently work for Google as a product manager. And as you all know, Alexa is part of Amazon. And then I would be taking some questions via chat. So feel free to message me there. I kind of have a fairly short time for this presentation, so I probably won't get to discuss in many details. I'll try to keep it high level as well, so that, kind of like a most common place. And so if any of the topics that I discuss here today catch your interest, or you just want to discuss in more details, you can also feel free to reach out to me and ask any questions also offline as well. So you can find me on LinkedIn with my name. All right, so the story starts in this country over here on the left. So wondering if anybody recognizes this country. This is Israel. My hometown is called Haifa. This is a place where I was born and raised. And I actually started my career in the recruiting unit. So in Israel, serving in the army is mandatory. Serving in the military is mandatory for everyone, including women. In fact, it's the only country in the world where women are required to serve as well. And over there in the recruiting unit, I was a human behavior expert. And that meant I needed to interview all the candidates for the military, and based on behavioral-based questions, determine what are their capabilities and what type of roles they can open up for them as they join the military. And then after I was released from my duties, I started in the university called Technion. It is basically the engineering university of Israel, and I studied electrical engineering with computer science. And I also started working while I was in school. I was working at a company called Mellanox, doing chip design, hardware engineering type of work. And I also worked as a teaching assistant. So I had to teach classes as well in physics and in math. And after I graduated from a university, I actually worked as a hardware engineer. So I worked for another telecommunication company called EasyChip, which was a small startup. And that meant I got to do everything in the life cycle of a chip, from designing the chip to validation, and also even supporting customers. And what's interesting about both those companies is that they are both located in Israel, and they were both recently bought by NVIDIA. And then I joined Apple. So over at Apple, I had the chance to do chip design, and I worked on the MacBooks, the handheld devices, which were the iPhones and the iPads. And the most recent project I worked on, which was very exciting, was the Apple Watch. And the reason it was very exciting at the time was because it was a big secret. Nobody was allowed to talk about it. We were kind of like really invested in this new technology and just couldn't wait for it to be announced so that we can all talk freely about the project that we're working on. And this brings me to the second part of my journey, which is when I moved to Boston in Massachusetts to attend the Harvard Business School. And as I was going through Harvard Business School, I also did a summer internship at a bank called Santander. And the reason I wanted to do an internship at a bank, and I do recommend for people with similar background as me to explore that opportunity, is because I've kind of came from the tech world, worked in tech for about 5 years before going to business school, and kind of had a smart guess that I would probably end up in tech. And so it really meant that for the summer, it was a safe opportunity for me to try a new industry and not in tech and just, get my feet wet doing something different. But then when I graduated from Harvard Business School, I joined Amazon. And by the way, I did discover that working in the banking industry wasn't exactly what I've been used to in terms of the speed of innovation. And I really kind of felt like, my destiny is to go back to tech. And so I joined Amazon and I joined the Alexa machine learning team and got to work with super smart people, most of them PhDs in machine learning, in speech recognition science. And so I was excited to bring, kind of like the combination of my engineering work as well as my newly acquired business education. So I worked for Alexa for about 3 years, mostly focused on the international expansion of Alexa. And then I also worked on AWS, which is the Amazon cloud business. And fairly recently, I left Amazon and I transitioned into Google, which is where I'm working now. And over at Google, I own the pre-release testing for a platform called Firebase, which is basically a platform that supports mobile app developers. So companies like Spotify or Twitter, when they want to build their mobile app, and before they basically deploy a new release into the hands of their customers, they want to have good ability to test their new release. And this is where my products come into play. We offer easy ways to distribute the app in the hand of testers. And we also offer a way to actually test the app doing QA on physical devices as well as on virtual devices. So life as a hardware engineer, I kind of put together a collage of pictures of kind of the fun parts as well. So, you get to work in fancy offices. I mean, maybe not these days with COVID. But then in normal days, this is a picture of where my office was. And I kind of put in the pictures also of like different fun team events that I helped to organize. And so, you get a lot of attention to the culture, especially in big companies like Apple, for example. The companies really spend time and investing resources in keeping employees happy and building a good culture. And so for me, it was definitely a very good experience to be working as a hardware engineer at Apple. And however, one of the things that I've always been interested in was kind of trying to understand the impact of my work on actual end customers. And also was very fascinated in a business model of how Apple operates and how companies operate. And I was kind of given responsibilities to manage our project and to report to leadership. And it kind of gave me an appetite to want to do a little bit more of those things and a little bit less of the traditional engineering type of work. And that's when I decided to apply to business programs in the US. And so I ended up going to Harvard Business School. And this is a picture of my section mates, my classmates. As you can see, looking at the flags, we really were a fairly international group of students. And we've had representatives from different industries, different countries, different career paths, but every single person was super bright and just very personable. And I've made some really great friends there. And I still keep in touch with several of my classmates when I need to make a big decision or, even just when I want to have a shoulder to cry on or just somebody to talk to, it's, always good to have people who have been, in a similar place in life and people who've known you for some time. And while I was in business school, I was really fascinated and wanted to kind of advance my skills in the places where I didn't really get a lot of education as an engineer. And so some of the more hard skills, so to say, have been, of course, in the finance world. So I a part of the mandatory finance classes that we've been taught at school. I also decided to take elective classes in very advanced finance topics and in different topics such as entrepreneurial finance and private equity finance, and really try to push myself to get into the level together with the same folks who actually worked in finance. At the same time, I was also very interested in getting better at soft skills. So I focused a lot on classes such as negotiation and public speaking, because I think those are important traits of being a good leader. And I kind of wanted to showcase a little bit about my life as a product manager. So, of course, these are the parts of the world that are more visible to others, right? So I put in a few examples here from my time at AWS, where I got to go out to Las Vegas and talk in reInvent, which is the annual huge AWS conference in Vegas. Every year, there's 60,000 people coming together to attend this conference. So I had a chance to do 2 sessions there. I also had a chance to speak at other smaller events. So as you can see here, I got to speak at the AWS Loft, which is a space for startup companies that Amazon offers for them to work out of. And I've also had a chance to go into representing Amazon at different conferences doing booth duty, which is also fun because you get to network and meet people from different companies and answer different questions and exchange contact information. And it's just been a lot of fun. So these are kind of like the parts of product management world that, are more out-facing. Of course, there's a lot of planning, a lot of legwork, a lot of coordination, and a lot of prioritization decisions that we as product managers need to do every day. We need to collaborate with really different people in our organization, from engineers, UX designers, scientists, folks working on tools, people doing QA, program managers, and a slew of other folks just to get our initiatives into motion and get things going. And at the same time, we also have to do a lot of reporting to our stakeholders and leadership. And so I kind of chose today to talk about a project that I worked on and kind of wanted to go through what it is like to work on it in the eyes of a product manager. Let's take a small break. Okay. So hopefully everyone out here have heard about Alexa, but in case you haven't, here's a little slide that talks about the Alexa family and the different devices that are Alexa enabled. And so the story of Alexa really started in 2014 with the first kind of voice-enabled device that Amazon had launched, which was the Fire TV, as well as the shopping app. I'm going to go through the next ones pretty quickly. So later in 2014, the first Echo device was launched, which had both speech recognition capabilities, but also natural language processing capabilities. And then integration with several of service providers, and hardware manufacturer in between 2014 and 2016. In 2016, the improved version of the Echo as well was launched. And then in 2017, we introduced the first device with a screen, the Echo Show. And of course, new generations of devices. We can move a little bit faster here. We also launched the Fire Cube, which has integration with TVs. And we've significantly increased the family of devices to enable things that you can take on the go, like frames and like headsets, and so really enabling more and more use cases for our customers. And behind every successful launch, there are product managers who spend time thinking about what will delight our customers, what kind of use cases we can enable, what is the requirement on the engineering side, on the hardware side, on the machine learning side to enable those use cases, what are the features that will delight our customers, and then what can we do based on the resources that we actually have. And so just touch on a few examples of things that Alexa can do. We have the weather capability, we have music, you can ask questions on your Alexa, you can have full conversations with Alexa. There's a slew of skills. We call the applications, we call them skills, which are basically third-party providers who, like for example, Domino's Pizza or iRobot, can allow you to even have more functionality with those. I'm going to talk about the language component, and then the cool things is as well. Alexa is now on in the car, on the go. A lot of capabilities are enabled with those new launches. So I think I mentioned earlier, my main focus have been basically launching Alexa in new countries and in new languages. So we can go quickly on this animation. You can just see throughout the years what are some of the places where Alexa expanded to. So of course, it was launched originally in the US. And after that, it was also launched in Germany, in the UK. It was launched in Japan, in India. So the Japanese Alexa, I always like to call it my first baby, because I was basically, when I joined Amazon, it was one of the main things I needed to focus on, and basically trying to understand what the Japanese customers would care about. What are some things that are special in that country, and later also some of the other countries that I've worked on. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about some challenges with new languages. Some of our languages we've seen that in different countries, like for example Japan, because of the variation of the population and the geography, you get to have people speaking with different dialects, and you want to make sure you have good coverage to be able to understand all those different dialects. We've also seen that just the language itself is very unique. Like for example, Japanese has 4 different character sets. Japanese language doesn't have spaces in it, so we needed to figure out what's a good way to break down a sentence into words. And then there's just like really interesting differences in the culture as well. So, if somebody in the US maybe say something like, Alexa, turn off the light, maybe somebody in Japan would say something like, Alexa, if you will, please turn off the light. So just needed to account for all those different changes, and then working together with the speech recognition scientists, with the data scientists, with the data collection team, and then of course with a lot of engineering team to just implement all the changes that are needed in the architecture to support this new language. And this is just really a taste of the project. I would be happy to take questions. I would be happy to connect with folks if you want to learn more about anything that came up in the presentation. And thank you so much for attending the session, and I wish you all the best in your product career.